My roommate found out I was keeping 3 guys on the hook as backups. She made some snide remarks, so I straight up sold one to her for $10,000. I don't know if that's appropriate, Emma said, her eyes darting around nervously. Suddenly, floating text appeared in the air. Girl, don't hesitate. These 3 aren't ordinary guys. Cold CEO, a rebellious race car driver and a trust fund heir. All rich, gorgeous, with perfect ABS. This is beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Can't wait to see the main character's carefully cultivated guys end up with our girl, Emma, instead. So satisfying. Already excited for Emma to use these men to humiliate the main character. She's going to regret this so hard. Emma's expression shifted from shock to disbelief, finally settling on pure joy. You have 3 backup guys, right? I'll take all 3. She said it like she was picking out vegetables at the grocery store. I laughed softly. 3 at once might be too much for you. Let me transfer one first. Once you've completely won him over, we can talk about the other 2. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but don't you dare regret this later. I won't regret it, I said. One backup costs $10,000. Cash only. Emma's eyes went wide. You're charging me $10,000. You might as well rob me. I stayed calm. Oh, then forget it. The floating text panicked. No, Emma, don't pass this up. These guys are worth billions. 10,000 is nothing. Once you land them, 10 million will be pocket change. The main character is so short-sighted. Poor students just don't get it. When she realizes she let a billionaire slip away for $10,000, she'll want to bang her head against a wall. Emma swallowed hard. Okay, fine. 10,000. It is deal. It took Emma a week to gather the money. Meanwhile, I carefully selected which fish to transfer to her. Jake Turner, 21 years old, 6 feet 2 inches, perfect ABS, student at the university across town, middle-class family. We met through a video game. He occasionally buys me bubble tea or takeout, never spending more than $20. His parents are divorced, which made him sensitive and starved for affection. You have to give him constant reassurance when I'm with him. I play the gentle, caring older sister type. After giving Emma my gaming account and chat profile, I went through every detail of my interactions with Jake. Quality customer service guaranteed. Haha, the main character still thinks Jake is a broke college student. Boy, Jake just hates gold diggers, so he pretends to be poor. The main character spent all that effort and only got a few bubble teas, while Emma gets everything without trying. I love it. Emma's lips curved into a smile. As soon as she got the account, she changed the password and shot me a challenging look. Sarah, once I've got him wrapped around my finger, don't you dare regret this, I smiled pleasantly. Of course I won't regret it. I just hope you won't either. Emma rolled her eyes and ignored me, immediately logging in to chat with Jake. For the next few weeks, Emma was glued to her phone, either chatting with Jake or gaming with him. From the floating comments, things were going well. Jake hadn't noticed the switch. Emma was slowly erasing my presence, following the floating text guidance to win him over. 2 weeks later, Emma walked into her dorm room. I immediately noticed the diamond necklace sparkling on her neck. Catching my gaze, Emma lifted her chin, smirking. Jake bought me this necklace. I looked it up online. It's worth over $2 million. I nodded. It's beautiful. Emma sighed dramatically. Honestly, I don't get men at all. You're pretty and smart. You kept Jake company for so long, and all he gave you was cheap bubble tea. I'm average looking and not that bright, and I've only been talking to him for 2 weeks. He already bought me this expensive necklace. Why do you think that is? Why else? I said. Obviously because he was pretending to be poor with me the whole time. I'd known Jake was loaded from the start. Otherwise I wouldn't have pursued him. Jake and I met in a video game. Only 2 types of people play that game. Whales who drop hundreds of thousands without blinking, and grinders who farm equipment for money. Jake was the former. I was the latter. The moment I saw him in game, I knew he was special. His gear alone cost at least $1 million. Love at first sight. I immediately started getting close to him. Daily dungeon runs, good morning and good night texts, constant check-ins. One night he opened up about his family trauma. I firmly established myself as the gentle, understanding older sister figure, perfectly manipulating this brooding, love-starved boy. Maybe afraid people only wanted his money, Jake pretended to be a broke, average student with mediocre looks. He'd often play the victim. Do you really think someone as ordinary as me deserves your love? I'm so scared that when you see the real me, you'll be disappointed and leave me. Meanwhile, I'd roll my eyes at his $1 million in-game setup. For rich guys, dropping $1 million in a game is probably like us spending $100. Doesn't even register. Jake didn't even realize he'd exposed himself, but I'd sweet talk him. How could I? You're the most special person to me. How could I ever leave you? Jake committed fully to his broke persona. He'd order me off-brand bubble tea and send gifts from discount websites, stuff that cost less than $10 with free shipping. But he had a silver tongue, carried me in games, and occasionally sent shirtless photos showing off his ABS. For a while I actually liked him, until one day, I was rushing to my part-time job on my electric scooter and crashed into a roadside barrier. My right leg broke. A good Samaritan took me to the hospital, x-rays, hospitalization, treatment. It all added up to over $20,000. I couldn't afford it. So I sent Jake photos from my hospital bed playing Pitiful Baby. Can you lend me some money? I'll pay you back as soon as I recover. The result? He ghosted me for an entire month. Luckily, I found a new fish during that time who paid my hospital bills. Otherwise I might have permanent damage. Only after I fully recovered did Jake start sending me good morning texts again, sharing his daily life like nothing happened. What a piece of trash. Might as well wait until I'm dead to pay respects at my grave. I wanted to dump him then, but I couldn't find the right moment. I couldn't afford to offend a rich guy like that. A careless breakup might lead to retaliation. So I kept him at arm's length while focusing on other fish in my pond. Maybe sensing my coldness, Jake's possessiveness exploded. He kept pestering me to meet in person. No way. Online relationships stay online. Can't let them interfere with real life. I was figuring out how to decline when my roommate, Emma, stepped up and took over this mess. Perfect it. She could squeeze money out of Jake. Good for her. I never envied others' gains or losses. At least I got my $10,000 cash. Seeing she couldn't get to me, Emma stopped bragging. By the way, Jake wants to meet me in person. He said to bring my roommates too. He wants to treat everyone to dinner and get to know you all. Emma glanced at me. Sarah, you're free the day after tomorrow, right? Finally, the face-slapping scene I've been waiting for. The main character thinks Jake is ordinary. When she sees our gorgeous Jake in person, she's going to lose it. But what if the main character regrets it and tries to steal him from Emma? Don't worry, Jake's already fallen for Emma. Even if he learns the truth, choose Emma without hesitation. If the main character tries anything, Jake will protect his girl and destroy her. I wanted to refuse, but Emma mentioned Jake prepared gifts for each roommate, gold chains for everyone. I immediately couldn't walk away. Damn capitalism. On the day of the meeting, I went makeup-free in a plain t-shirt and jeans, sitting in the corner, making sure not to steal Emma's spotlight. When Jake walked in, I instinctively looked up. All skin, delicate features, cold and distant expression with an air of aristocratic pride. Truly a rich guy who casually drops millions in games. After that brief observation, I went back to my phone. Jake's gaze lingered on me for a moment before moving away. Emma rushed up to him enthusiastically. You're late. Your punishment is peeling shrimp for me later. She reached for his hand, but he smoothly dodged. Sorry I'm late, Jake said with a faint smile. I brought gifts for everyone. Thanks for taking care of my girlfriend. Emma, can you introduce me to your roommates? Or Emma introduced everyone. When it was my turn, she paused. Sarah Mitchell, our school's campus beauty, gorgeous and smart. So many guys chase her. She even kept 3 guys on the hook as backups. Pretty impressive. Jake froze. 3. I looked up, meeting his dark gaze calmly. I smiled slightly. Correction. Now I only have 2. Jake stared at me intensely. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Fortunately, the waiter brought food just then, breaking the tension. During dinner, Emma kept showing off their relationship, making Jake serve her food, peel shrimp, everything. I stayed in my corner, half-heartedly eating while replying to messages on my phone. Suddenly, someone snatched my phone away. I looked up to see Jake watching me with a neutral expression. Why are you on your phone the whole time? Don't you like the food? What terrible boundaries. I frowned but said nothing, just held out my hand, signaling him to return my phone. But Jake had zero awareness. Instead, he glanced at my screen. What are you looking at? That's so interesting. Can I see, too? The atmosphere turned weird. Emma looked between us suspiciously, testing the waters. Sarah barely eats anyway. Don't worry about her. Let's just enjoy our meal. Jake ignored her, staring at me intently, asking each word, deliberately. Who exactly are you texting? Oh, even the most oblivious person could sense something was wrong. Now Emma's voice trembled. Jake, what the heck is your problem? You've been staring at Sarah since she walked in. You won't even respond when I talk to you. Do you even want to be with me anymore? Jake gave her a contemptuous glance. Did you really think I was stupid enough not to know who I've been talking to this whole time? Wait, what? The male lead figured out the truth, stared at him, My expression completely flat. The floating text above Emma's head began blinking rapidly in a frantic neon red. Error. Error. Male lead awareness has deviated from the established plot line. Hostile intervention detected. I almost laughed out loud at the invisible panic attack happening in the air. Jake didn't even look at Emma as she started trembling next to him. His dark eyes were entirely locked onto me. You really thought you could just hand over our account to someone else and disappear? He asked, his voice dripping with dangerous quiet. I finally pulled my phone back from his grip, slipping it into my pocket. It was a business transaction. Jake, she wanted you. And she had the cash. $10,000 seemed like a fair market price for a guy who sends cheap tea and disappears when I break my leg. The entire table went dead silent. Emma's jaw dropped so fast I thought it might unhinge. You broke your leg? Jake's mask of cold aristocratic pride cracked, replaced by genuine shock. I raised an eyebrow at his sudden display of concern. Don't act like you didn't know. I sent you pictures from the emergency room. I literally begged you for help covering the $20,000 medical bill. You left me on read for an entire month. Jake's face went completely pale. I didn't get those messages. I swear to you, Sarah, I never saw them. My family confiscated all my electronics that month because they found out I was gaming instead of managing the overseas accounts. I rolled my eyes. Save the tragic air monologue for someone who cares. Whether you were locked in a tower or just ignoring me, the result was the same. I needed you, and you weren't there. So I moved on to better things. Emma slammed her hands on the table, breaking her silence. You knew he was rich this whole time? She shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at me. You scammed me out of $10,000. I turned my gaze to my irate roommate. I didn't scam you at all. Emma, I transferred the account exactly as promised, and you got the $2 million necklace out of it. If you couldn't keep his attention, that is strictly a skill issue. The floating text started glitching wildly, spitting out half-formed sentences. Villainous is too powerful. Need backup tropes. Activate amnesia sequence? I scoffed at the pathetic floating words. Jake suddenly stood up, towering over the table. Keep the necklace, Emma, and never contact me again. He reached for my wrist, but I smoothly pulled my arm back out of his reach. Don't touch me. I warned him. I'm not going anywhere with you. Sarah, please, Jake pleaded, his voice cracking slightly. I can pay you back for the hospital bills right now. I can give you 100 times that amount. Just give me a chance to explain properly. I picked up my purse and pushed my chair back. Money doesn't buy time. Jake, I already found someone who paid my bills when I actually needed it. You're officially off the roster. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. The cool night air felt incredibly refreshing against my skin. My phone buzzed in my pocket almost immediately. It wasn't Jake. It was a message from fish number 2. Hey beautiful. Finished with your boring dinner yet? I smiled at the text from Leo. Leo was the rebellious race car driver. He was loud, obnoxious, and drove like a maniac. But he had one redeeming quality. He never pretended to be something he wasn't. He flaunted his wealth shamelessly and showered me with actual cash instead of digital garbage. I typed back a quick reply. Just finished. Come pick me up. Less than 5 minutes later, a deafening roar echoed down the street. A sleek, matte black sports car drifted around the corner and screeched to a halt right in front of me. The passenger door popped open automatically. Leo leaned over. A mischievous grin plastered across his face. His silver hair caught the streetlights, and his leather jacket squeaked as he moved. Get in, loser. We're going shopping. I slid into the plush leather seat and let out a sigh of relief. You have no idea how glad I am to see you, I told him. Leo chuckled, revving the engine loudly enough to wake the dead. Bad date? He asked, pulling away from the curb at illegal speeds. Worse, I replied. An ex who thinks throwing money at a problem fixes the past. Leo snorted contemptuously. Amateurs. Everyone knows you throw money at the present, not the past. Speaking of which, check the glove box. I popped it open and found a thick stack of $100 bills secured with a rubber band. What's this for? I asked. You mentioned you wanted to upgrade your electric scooter. Now you can buy a real motorcycle. Or at least a scooter that doesn't explode when you hit a pothole. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was exactly why Leo was currently sitting at the top of my list. He was practical. We spent the rest of the evening cruising around the city, entirely ignoring the barrage of texts blowing up my phone. Most of them were from Emma. She was demanding a refund in all capital letters. The others were from Jake, sending literal bank statements to prove his net worth. I muted both of them. When I finally returned to the dorm late that night, the room was dark. I flicked on the light to find Emma sitting on her bed, glaring daggers at me. The floating text above her head was now a sickly yellow color. Hostility levels critical. Initiate revenge subplot. Main character must reclaim dominance. You owe me $10,000. Sarah. Emma hissed through gritted teeth. I calmly hung my jacket on the back of my chair. All sales are final. Emma. You read the terms and conditions before handing over the cash. You embarrassed me in front of him. She stood up. Her fists clenched at her sides. You set me up to look like a fool. I shook my head, genuinely tired of her delusion. You set yourself up by thinking real life works like a cheap romance novel. You thought you could just take over a chat history and magically inherit a billionaire's undying love. That's on you. The floating text flared angrily. Villainous is breaking the fourth wall. System cannot compute logic-based arguments. I ignored the text and climbed into my bed. If you want to be mad at Jake. He's the one who dumped you. Emma stomped her foot like a petulant child. I'm going to ruin you. Sarah. I'm going to find out who your other two backups are. And I'm going to take them away too. I pulled the covers up to my chin. Good luck with that. They aren't exactly the gaming type. The next week was a masterclass in aggressive stalking. Jake transferred to my university. He suddenly appeared in my morning economics lecture, sitting 2 rows behind me. He wore designer suits that cost more than my tuition. The entire female population of the campus was swooning over the tragic, brooding new transfer student. I just found it deeply annoying. Every time I tried to take notes, he would slide a coffee onto my desk. Not the cheap bubble tea anymore, but artisanal lattes imported from some ridiculous mountain range. I pushed them straight into the trash can. Emma, meanwhile, had gone into full detective mode. She trailed me everywhere, trying to catch a glimpse of my phone screen. She wanted to know who fish number 2 and fish number 3 were. I deliberately let her see a text from Leo one afternoon. It read, "Track day tomorrow. Wear something tight." I watched from the corner of my eye as Emma's eyes widened. She quickly typed something into her own phone. The floating text popped up happily. Clue acquired. Target 2 is a racing enthusiast. Prepare the innocent clumsy girl at the racetrack scenario. I almost felt bad for her. Leo was going to eat her alive. Saturday morning arrived. Bright and deafeningly loud at the local racing circuit. I wore a simple black tank top and cargo pants, leaning against the pit lane barrier. Leo was on the track, tearing up the asphalt in a modified Nissan GTR. The smell of burning rubber and gasoline filled the air. Suddenly, I heard a high-pitched squeak nearby. I turned to see Emma teetering through the garage area in stilettos and a ruffled pink sundress. She looked like a confused flamingo that had wandered into a war zone. The floating text above her was cheering her on. Yes, stand out from the crowd. Show him you are different from these rough, masculine women. I covered my mouth to hide a massive grin. Leo pulled into the pit lane, the engine dying down to a deep, aggressive purr. He popped the door open and stepped out, pulling off his helmet. Sweat dampened his silver hair, making him look exceptionally rugged. Emma immediately stumbled forward, executing a perfectly timed fake trip. She let out a delicate gasp, falling directly toward Leo's chest. In a romance novel, he would have caught her. Their eyes would have met, and time would have stopped. In reality, Leo had the reflexes of a professional driver. He saw a random blur of pink falling towards him and instinctively sidestepped. Emma crashed hard into a stack of spare racing tires. A massive cloud of black brake dust puffed up into the air, covering her pristine pink dress. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Leo shouted, genuinely startled. "Are you drunk?" Emma coughed violently, spitting out tire dust. "I tripped," she stammered, looking up at him with teary eyes. "I'm so sorry. I'm just so clumsy sometimes." She tried to flutter her eyelashes, but the black soot made her look like a raccoon. Leo looked utterly disgusted. "Security," he yelled, waving a mechanic over. "Get this crazy chick out of my pit box before she breaks something expensive." Emma's face went crimson under the dirt. "Wait, no. I'm Sarah's roommate." She pointed desperately at me. Leo finally noticed me leaning against the barrier. He jogged over, ignoring Emma completely. "Did you bring her?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I shrugged innocently. "She followed me. I think she has a crush on you." Leo shuddered visibly. "Keep her away from my cars. She looks like a liability." The mechanic grabbed Emma by the arm and escorted her out of the garage. The floating text above her head was practically weeping. "Mission failed. Target 2 is immune to clumsy charm. Recalibrating strategy." I handed Leo a bottle of water. "You broke her heart. You know." Leo chugged half the bottle and wiped his mouth. "I don't care about her heart. I care about my paint job." He leaned in close, wrapping an arm around my waist. "So, how much do you like me today?" I patted his cheek playfully. "Enough to let you buy me lunch." We went to a high-end steakhouse near the track. Midway through the meal, my phone buzzed with an incoming transfer alert. $50,000 had just been deposited into my bank account. I stared at the screen, bewildered. The sender was Jake Turner. A second later, a text came through. Please just talk to me for 5 minutes. I blocked his number immediately. Leo noticed my expression. Something wrong? Just a spam caller. I lied smoothly. I wasn't about to tell Leo about Jake. Men with egos like theirs didn't play well together. But it seemed fate had a twisted sense of humor. As we walked out of the steakhouse, a sleek silver Maybach pulled up to the valet stand. Jake stepped out. He froze when he saw me, his eyes quickly darting to Leo's hand resting on the small of my back. The air pressure in the immediate vicinity seemed to drop. Sarah, Jake said, his voice dangerously low. Who is this? Leo puffed up his chest instantly, stepping slightly in front of me. I'm her boyfriend. Who the hell are you? Jake's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might shatter. I'm the guy she was with before you. The guy she belongs with. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a headache coming on. I don't belong to anyone. I am an independent contractor in the business of surviving. Both of them ignored me entirely, locked in a primal staring contest. You're that racing kid, aren't you? Jake sneered. New money. Loud, obnoxious, and utterly lacking in class. Leo laughed. A harsh, barking sound. And you're the tech bro trust fund baby who hides behind a keyboard. I heard you ghosted her when she was in the hospital. You're pathetic. Jake flinched, the guilt flashing visibly in his eyes. That was a mistake. I'm fixing it. You can't fix being a coward. Leo shot back. I decided I had enough of this testosterone-fueled soap opera. I turned around and hailed a passing taxi. Where are you going? Both of them yelled at the same time. Home, I shouted back, climbing into the cab. You two can measure yourselves out here all night. I shut the door and told the driver to step on it. When I got back to the dorm, the atmosphere was downright toxic. Emma was scrubbing her pink dress in the sink, crying loudly. The floating text above her was in full crisis mode. Main character status fading. Aura depleted. Must initiate ultimate wealthy benefactor trope to regain balance. Emma glared at me in the mirror. You think you've won, don't you? She sobbed. I didn't answer. I just opened my laptop to check my finances. Between my own savings, the $10,000 from Emma, and the $50,000 Jake just forced upon me, I was actually doing great. I could finally afford to move out of this terrible dorm and get my own apartment. I started browsing real estate listings. Tomorrow, I'm going to meet someone who will crush both of your stupid boyfriends, Emma declared to my back. I paused my scrolling. Oh really? The floating text provided a helpful hint. Target number 3 located. Julian Sterling. Heir to the Sterling Corporation. Net worth. Unfathomable. My breath hitched in my throat. Julian. Fish number 3. Emma had somehow tracked him down. Julian was different from Jake and Leo. Jake was a broken kid playing games. Leo was a wild dog running on adrenaline. Julian was a shark. He was older, calculating, and dangerously intelligent. He was also the one who had quietly paid my $20,000 hospital bill when Jake disappeared. He didn't make a big show of it. He just walked into my hospital room, swiped his black card, and told me to rest. I owed Julian a lot more than just money. How did you find him? Asked, my voice deadly serious. Emma smiled triumphantly, wiping her tears. I hired a private investigator with the money I borrowed from my parents. He told me Julian Sterling visits the campus library every Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to intercept him. I'm going to show him how shallow and manipulative you are. I stared at her, genuinely astounded by her stupidity. Emma, listen to me very carefully. You can mess with Jake, and you can annoy Leo, but do not approach Julian. He will not tolerate your games. He will destroy you. Emma laughed. A sharp, arrogant sound. You're just scared because he's your biggest fish. Don't worry, Sarah. I won't charge you $10,000 when I take him. I'll do it for free. I closed my laptop slowly. Fine. Don't say I didn't warn you. Tuesday afternoon arrived with a heavy downpour of rain. I sat in the corner of the campus library, hidden behind a stack of reference books. I didn't want to interfere. I just wanted to witness the carnage. Julian arrived exactly at 3 o'clock. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal overcoat, looking like a sovereign inspecting his domain. His silver-rimmed glasses gave him an air of intense scholarly authority. He sat at his usual table, opened a thick leather-bound book, and began to read. Emma made her move. She had dressed in a sophisticated beige trench coat, trying to look intellectual and mature. The floating text hovered beside her like a cheerleader. Graceful encounter activated. Drop book. Make eye contact. Display vulnerable intellect. She walked past his table and deliberately dropped a copy of War and Peace onto the floor. It landed with a massive thud. Julian didn't even flinch. He didn't look up from his reading. Emma stood there awkwardly for a full 10 seconds. When he didn't react, she cleared her throat loudly. Excuse me, she said. her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Could you help me with this? So heavy. Julian slowly turned a page. Gravity is a fundamental force of nature, he said, his voice smooth and cold as ice. I suggest you acclimate to it. Pick it up yourself. Emma turned bright red. The floating text sputtered. Dialogue mismatch. Try damsel in distress approach. I'm actually looking for someone. She pressed on, leaning slightly over his table. Someone named Sarah Mitchell. I believe you know her. That finally got his attention. Julian closed his book softly. He looked up, his sharp gray eyes pinning Emma in place. And who are you to speak her name? I'm her roommate, Emma said, gaining a bit of false confidence. I thought you should know the truth about her. She's using you. She has 2 other guys she's playing, just for their money. Julian stared at her in utter silence. The library was so quiet I could hear the rain hitting the windows. I'm aware, he finally said. Emma blinked, stunned. You know? And you don't care? Why should I care about the trivial amusements she keeps on the side? Julian asked, his tone laced with absolute arrogance. A lion does not concern himself with the stray dogs barking at his mate. Emma took a step back, visibly intimidated. But she's a gold digger. She sold one of her boyfriends to me for $10,000. Julian let out a soft, elegant chuckle. Did she really? That is incredibly enterprising of her. I always admired her business acumen. Emma was hyperventilating now. You're all crazy. Why do all of you rich guys fall for her? She's heartless. Julian stood up, towering over Emma despite his elegant posture. Because she is honest about her heartlessness. She does not hide her ambitions behind fake clumsiness or dropped books. Now, remove yourself from my presence before I buy your parents' house and evict them. Emma gasped, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. She turned and bolted out of the library, leaving her copy of War and Peace on the floor. The floating text above where she stood shattered into digital fragments and faded out completely. System crash. Main character narrative aborted. I let out a low whistle from my hiding spot. Julian turned his head slightly, his gaze landing directly on my stack of reference books. You can come out now. Sarah. I stood up, feeling a rare blush creep up my neck. How did you know I was there? I smelled your cheap vanilla perfume the moment I walked in, he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. I walked over to his table, keeping a respectable distance. Sorry about her. She's been having a minor psychotic break regarding her perceived main character status. Julian reached down and picked up the heavy book Emma had dropped, setting it on the table. $10,000 for the gamer boy? You undersold him. His family's net worth is at least $3 billion. I shrugged, sitting in the chair opposite him. I prefer liquid assets. Besides, he had a bad attitude. Julian leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. And what about the driver? How much is he worth to you? I looked into Julian's eyes. They were deep, calculating, and completely serious. He's not for sale, I said carefully, but his lease might be expiring soon. Julian smiled, a genuine, terrifyingly handsome smile. Good, because I am tired of sharing. My heart skipped a tiny beat. This was dangerous territory. Julian wasn't a game I could just pause and walk away from. You know I'm not looking to be put in a gilded cage. Julian, I value my freedom. I have no intention of caging you. Sarah, I intend to fund your empire. There's a difference. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He slid it across the table toward me. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a set of keys with a sleek metal fob. The penthouse you were looking at online last night. I bought the entire building. The top floor is yours. No strings attached. I stared at the keys. You bought a building because I looked at an apartment listing? Consider it a return on my investment. You survived the hospital. You survived the idiot gamer. And you survived the reckless driver. You proved you have stamina. I closed the box and slid it back to him. I can't accept this, Julian. His smile faded slightly. Why not? Because if I take this, I lose my leverage. I become just another asset in your portfolio. Julian looked genuinely surprised, a rare emotion for him. He reached out and traced the edge of the velvet box. Then what do you want? Sarah, I want to be your partner, not your pet. I want capital to start my own firm. I want to make my own money, so I never have to rely on a guy to pay my hospital bills again. Julian stared at me for a long time. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It wasn't a cold, mocking laugh. It was a rich, booming sound of pure amusement. You are absolutely magnificent, he said. Deal. We draw up the contract tomorrow. I smiled, feeling a surge of genuine triumph. Over the next few months, everything changed. I moved out of the dorm and into a modest apartment I rented with my own money. Emma had a complete breakdown after maxing out her credit cards trying to buy designer clothes to attract more rich men. She failed out of her classes and had to move back home. The floating text never appeared again. It seemed reality had finally crushed her fictional delusions. Jake tried to corner me on campus a few more times. He even tried to buy the building I moved into, just to be my landlord. But Julian's lawyers hit his family's corporation with a massive hostile takeover bid. Jake's father dragged him back overseas by his ear to deal with the corporate warfare. I never saw him again. Leo lasted a bit longer. He showed up at my new apartment one night, drunk and angry, demanding to know why I had cut him off. I handed him a check for everything he had ever spent on me, plus interest. He tore the check up and threw it in my face, calling me a heartless witch. I didn't argue with him. I just shut the door. It hurt a little, because out of all my backups, Leo had been the most fun. But fun didn't pay the long-term bills, and I was building an empire now. Julian kept his word. He seeded my investment firm with a massive injection of capital. He taught me how to read the markets, how to ruthlessly destroy competition, and how to negotiate without showing a shred of emotion. We became an unstoppable force. Our relationship was built on mutual respect, shared ambition, and an undeniable physical chemistry. We didn't say I love you. We said, let's merge these assets. For us, it meant the same thing. 5 years later, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my own corner office. I looked down at the bustling city below, a cup of expensive black coffee in my hand. My assistant knocked lightly on the door. Come in, called out. A young woman walked in, holding a tablet. Ms. Mitchell, your 2 p.m. appointment is here. It's an applicant for the junior analyst position. Send them in. The door opened wider, and a familiar face walked tentatively into the room. It was Emma. She looked older, tired, and thoroughly defeated. She wore an ill-fitting gray suit that looked like it came from a discount rack. When she saw me standing behind the massive mahogany desk, she froze. Sarah, she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. Hello, Emma, I said smoothly, taking a seat in my leather chair. Please, have a seat. She practically collapsed into the chair opposite me. You're the CEO of Mitchell Holdings? I nodded, tapping a gold pin against my desk. I am. And I see you're applying for an entry-level position. Emma looked down at her lap, her hands trembling. I didn't know it was your company. I'll just leave. She started to stand up, but I raised a hand. Sit down. She hesitated, then slowly sat back down. I looked at her resume on my screen. It was unimpressive. Spotty job history, unfinished degree, massive gaps in employment. You've had a rough few years. I noted objectively. Emma let out a bitter laugh. You could say that. After I left school, my parents cut me off. I tried to find someone to take care of me, but real life isn't a romance novel. I finished for her. There are no floating texts telling you how to win the billionaire. Emma flinched at the memory. I was so stupid. I thought I could just buy what you had. I didn't realize how hard you actually worked to maintain it all. I leaned back in my chair, studying her carefully. You were greedy. Emma. Greed without capability is just a fast track to ruin. She nodded silently, tears tracking down her dull cheeks. I know. I'm sorry. For everything. I sighed, tossing the pen onto the desk. I don't hold grudges. Emma. They are bad for business. I will offer you a probationary position in the mailroom. Pays minimum wage, but it offers full benefits and a chance to move up if you actually work for it. Emma looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. You would really give me a job? After everything I did? I am giving you an opportunity to survive on your own merit. If you mess it up, you're fired immediately. Do you understand? Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. She stood up, bowing slightly before rushing out of the office. I watched her leave, feeling absolutely nothing. No triumph, no pity, just the satisfaction of closing a minor, outstanding file. The door to my private elevator chimed softly. Julian stepped out, wearing a sharp navy suit. He looked just as dangerous and handsome as he did 5 years ago. Was that your old roommate I just saw crying in the hallway? He asked, walking over to pour himself a drink from my bar cart. It was. I just hired her for the mailroom. Julian raised an eyebrow, handing me a glass of scotch. Feeling charitable today? No, just practical. She owes me for the emotional damage of almost ruining my favorite pink sundress back in college. I'll take it out of her paycheck in small increments. Julian laughed. That rich, booming sound that always made my chest feel warm. You are a terrible person. Sarah Mitchell. I clinked my glass against his. That's why you married me. Julian Sterling. He smiled, leaning over the desk to capture my lips in a deep, bruising kiss. The taste of expensive scotch and raw power lingered in my mouth. When he finally pulled back, He checked his watch. We have a board meeting in 10 minutes to finalize the acquisition of Turner Industries. Are you ready to crush your ex-boyfriend's family legacy? I stood up, smoothing out my tailored skirt. I've been ready for 5 years. We walked out of the office together, a united front of corporate sharks ready to draw blood. As the elevator doors closed, I caught a brief glimpse of my reflection in the polished metal. There was no floating text above my head. There was no author narrating my life. I didn't need a system to make me the main character. I wrote my own story, and I forged my own ending, and it was worth a hell of a lot more than $10,000. The boardroom doors swung open, revealing a table full of nervous executives. At the far end sat Jake, looking exhausted and broken, the weight of his failing company resting heavily on his shoulders. When he saw me walk in beside Julian, all the color drained from his face. "Hello, Jake," I said, my voice ringing clear and authoritative across the silent room. "Let's talk about the price of your survival." The meeting was short and ruthlessly efficient. We stripped his company down to its bare bones, absorbing its profitable sectors and discarding the dead weight. Jake signed the final transfer papers with a trembling hand. He looked up at me one last time, his eyes filled with a desperate, lingering regret. "If I had just paid that hospital bill," he whispered, almost to himself. I leaned across the table, my expression completely unreadable. "If you had paid that bill, Jake, I would still be a girl playing games for survival. You did me a favor." I stood up, turning my back on him. Julian placed a warm hand on the small of my back as we exited the room. The empire was expanding. The future was entirely under my control. And the best part? Every single dime of it was mine. I stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, slipping on my sunglasses. The city buzzed around me, oblivious to the power shift that had just occurred in the tower above. I hailed a private car, sinking into the plush leather seats with a deep sigh of contentment. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out to see a notification from my banking app. Dividends from the Turner acquisition had just hit my account. It was a number with so many zeros it almost didn't look real. I smiled, locking the screen and tossing the phone onto the empty seat beside me. No backups needed. No safety nets required. I had finally become the apex predator in my own pond, and the water felt absolutely perfect. The car merged seamlessly into the heavy city traffic, carrying me forward into my own beautifully calculated horizon. The end. But in business, there is never truly an end. There are only new markets to conquer and new fools to part from their money. I closed my eyes, letting the gentle hum of the engine lull me into a momentary rest. Tomorrow, the real work would begin again, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The world belongs to those who realize it's all just one big transaction, and I have always been an excellent negotiator. Let the credits roll on the romance, and let the real game commence. I am Sarah Mitchell, and I am nobody's backup. I am the master of the board. Checkmate. The engine purred. The city lights blurred into a streak of gold, and I rode off into the victorious night. Unapologetic. Unstoppable. Alone in my sovereignty, yet entirely fulfilled. The ultimate prize was never the boy. It was the freedom to never need him in the first place. This is my kingdom, and it is built to last forever. A legacy forged in ambition and sealed with absolute control. No regrets. No looking back. Just upward, onward, and infinitely wealthier. My story, written by me, funded by me, and celebrated by me alone. The perfect ending to an imperfect beginning. Silence descended on the cabin of the car. A luxurious, expensive silence. The kind of silence you can only buy when you hold the world in the palm of your hand. I smiled one last time into the darkness. Life is beautiful when you finally learn how to play it right. The final curtain falls, not on a wedding, but on a total corporate monopoly. And honestly, it's the most satisfying happily ever after I could ever imagine. Every single moment, every single calculated risk, brought me to this exact pinnacle of power, and nobody can ever take it away. It is done. I have won, and the victory is entirely, beautifully mine. Forever.